What's going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to another discussion video. I'm going to try to make this one as quick and informative as I can, but let me give a little context as to why I'm even bothering making this video. I was streaming on Twitch the other day, and one of my loyal and longtime supporters of my Twitch and YouTube channel was going to an event, and he wanted to know what are some things that he should bring to the event. What were some key items that he would want to make sure that he wouldn't forget? Me and the chat were chipping in some ideas, and I was like, you know what, this is something that I wanted to make into a video for quite some time, and with some feedback from chat, here we are making this video you're seeing today. So hopefully some of you guys will find this useful, but right now we're going to go through a bit of a checklist for some things you might want to bring to an event, things you don't want to forget, and also talk about some maybe do's and don'ts when going to a tournament as well. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is, of course, bringing your deck. Obviously, this is elementary. If you leave home without this, you might as well not have went at all, because no one is gonna have a deck for you to borrow that's exactly the one you want to play. Now, I guess a little tip I could give when it comes to deck boxes. I know there are those tiny, like, one pocket deck boxes that you can really just barely squeeze your main, extra, and side deck in there, plus tokens and field centers and dice. Like, it's impossible to fit all that in there. That's why I'm a fan of these monster deck boxes. No, I'm not paid to say that, but I've been a fan of these for a long time. 2 compartments, lots of space to fit dice, tokens, main, side, extra, all that in a very nice hard plastic shell. Been a fan of these for a long time, and obviously making sure you have a quality deck box is important. These aren't too expensive. I only think they're like $8 or $10, and it's worth putting a little money into these, because after all, your deck is going to go inside there, which could have some very expensive cards, and you want to make sure you can keep them protected at all times. Second thing I want to talk about, first things that you should make sure you have at an event, whether it be locals, YCS, regional, you name it, any event, these things can apply. So that next thing, of course, is a playmat, whether it be there's a beautiful cloth one from Imperium Duelists, link to their website down below, or a rubber mat, whether you have it in one of these bags or a tube, whatever it may be, make sure you have your mat. You don't want to be caught playing on the table, making your cards get even more dirty than they have to be. Next thing I want to talk about is a pretty important thing, and I've been victim of this too, and every time I forget these, I always get annoyed that I don't have them, because it's always slightly an inconvenience in some way, shape, or form. And to make sure you have a set of dice, whether it be like these dice here, or literally just any dice, any plain old dice from like a Yahtzee game or Monopoly or whatever, right? Just like make sure you have some dice so you can, roll to see who gets choice to go first or second, roll to maybe pick a danger card out of your opponent's hand at random, or to select a back row or something you want to destroy at random with like a Twin Twister or a Cosmic Cyclone. Dice, just very handy, and again, you can also use them to keep counters for playing a deck like Pendulum, because there are a lot of counters that you need to keep track of, so having a set of dice will definitely be that thing you want to have, so you don't have to be that guy that has to ask the opponent to borrow dice or the guy next to you to borrow dice. I've been there before. It's a bit awkward. Just make sure you've got a set of dice on you. They're pretty cheap to get as well. Next thing I want to talk about, and this next section I want to dive into here, it sort of depends on the level of event you're going to. Now, if you're at locals, you want to make sure you can keep track of life points, and making, just having a smartphone with a built-in calculator app will suffice just for locals, or a graphing calculator. Maybe you have one left over from high school like I do, or one for college, whatever it may be. They're very handy to keep life points for both players, so having one of those is nice. And you can even put them in one of these cases from Imperium Duelists also. Room for tokens, pencils, dice, calculator case, or calculator, whatever. And the point of this video is not just to plug Imperium the whole time. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a fancy graphing calculator. You don't need a case if you don't want one, etc., etc. Just, some ideas. And then if you're going to a regional or a YCS or a UDS or an OTS, very, very important that you have this pen and paper, good old-fashioned pen and paper to keep track of life points, writing them down manually, because I believe at higher level events you are not allowed to use your phone as a calculator. That's why having pen and paper like this, a little notepad that you can use to keep track of multiple games, etc. It could just be a sheet of paper. It doesn't have to be a notepad like this. It could literally just be a sheet of paper and a pen. Make sure you maybe bring 2 pens in case the first one fails on you if it's a long event. Make sure you have a couple of pens with you just in case one might fail. Always, it doesn't hurt to be prepared. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, these aren't mandatory, but they're definitely helpful to have in any given situation, and that is things like tokens and field centers. Now, they could be, a custom field center like this Al Mirage one. It could be a token that specifically relates to whatever deck you're playing, or it could just be a random token like this. I just happen to have, German Sky Striker tokens. I don't play Sky Striker, but a token is a token nonetheless, and you can use them for whatever. Ideally, if you have a deck that is like Layer of Darkness, and you have the Layer of Darkness tokens, why not use those? Those will fit perfectly. They fit with what you're playing. All the stats and levels and everything is correct. Less things to remember at the end of the day. But having tokens or field centers is certainly nice. And one little tip you can do is I like to keep my extra deck and my side deck separated using a field center. So you have the 2 stacks like this, and then you just take your field center and then just put it in between them, and then it makes it easier to grab it like out of your deck. I need my extra deck, need my side deck, etc., etc. Just helps keep things organized a little bit, and gives your field center a sort of like the purpose of like a divider in your deck box. So, pretty interesting thing to have there. And another thing I want to mention here is to bring maybe a trade binder if you're looking to do some trading, whatever it may be. Bringing a trade binder certainly doesn't hurt. I know, amazing front page there, right? Amazing empty front page. But bringing a binder certainly doesn't hurt to have. Now, unfortunately, there are people who go to these events that steal things, and that's super unfortunate that people are that desperate to take things from other people that they should not take. But it happens. So don't bring anything with you that you aren't okay with losing, because it could happen to you. You could lose a deck, you could lose a binder. If you got some cards in there you're not going to want to trade, just don't bring them in the first place, and sort of reduce the risk of having to take a severe loss at the event if something bad does happen. Likely not to happen, but still, nonetheless, it can happen. So just make sure if you bring binders and stuff, don't bring too much. Maybe don't bring your most prized possession, because again, if it gets lost, you might not get it back. So just some words of caution there. And one of the last things I could talk about is, of course, bring a water bottle. Bring a refillable one. Good for the environment. Fill it up at a water fountain in between rounds. If you run out, you don't have to buy water. Just bring a good old-fashioned water bottle, and maybe some snacks as well. I wouldn't be chugging any energy drinks if I were you. Not the best idea. I would bring some healthy snacks like protein bars, almonds, nuts, things like that, fruit if you can, and avoid trying to have to, eat really bad snack food, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But if that's all you got, it's all you got. Other things I've seen people do is they bring headphones to the event, which you're not supposed to have them on you during a match, which makes sense. Some people like to have them, to listen to music in between rounds to keep your head focused, which is totally understandable. But just make sure you have them off your person at the start of the match, just to keep things, according to procedure, following procedures and things like that. Also, one thing I forgot to mention for this video is if you're going to a regional, an OTS, a YCS, a UDS, whatever it may be, you're probably going to need a printed out deck list, probably not for locals, but for those other events, you're probably going to need a deck list. And if you want to avoid writing out your deck list manually, maybe you have really bad handwriting, I know mine is not perfect, and you want to make sure the judges and officials can read everything perfectly, you can actually use Dueling Book to take a deck list that you have built on there and export it as an official Konami deck list that you can print out at your house or maybe a friend's house or whatever. You can like tell them your deck list and have them print it out for you, or maybe email it to you and print it out. So that's just a really helpful tool, because I know for the longest time I wrote out all my deck lists manually. I would print it out and then write it out manually and fill it out, etc., etc., until my friend actually told me about I could do it on Dueling Book. So Dueling Book is a great website for that. If you already test on it, most of you probably already do, play online games on there. But you can also use it to print out your deck lists, which is super awesome. And even if you use YGO Pro, you can export those deck list files over to Dueling Book, and then same thing applies, print them out, etc., etc. There's also other some official tournament forms that you can have printed out and filled out on that site as well, which is super helpful when getting ready for an event. And the last thing I want to talk about is, obviously, you have all these items that we talked about. You got to have somewhere to put them. It could be in a backpack like this. This is like a military esque looking backpack. You don't need something like this. It could be a drawstring bag, but ideally something that's secure enough to hold all your items. Make sure things aren't ripping and falling out as you go. Make sure it's a sturdy backpack, maybe one you use for school or work or whatever it may be. Just make sure you got something secure to keep all that stuff in. So that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Did I miss anything? Are there any items that you personally bring to an event or you never leave home without when going to an event? I'd love to hear it. Sort of keep it as like a log for other people to see when they click onto this video, and give more information to help make sure people are better prepared for events and tournaments alike. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, Winterkill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one.